Hello, everyone, and welcome back to War Machine Weekend 2014. We're here. I'm Will Schick, Director of Business Development for Privateer Press. I'm here with David D.C. Carl, as always, the Development Manager for Privateer Press. And we are here to cover the War Machine Weekend Invitational. So round one began last night. We are kicking off today with rounds 2 through the finals. And what a match we have for us to start the game off.
Yeah, we've got a great group of players here, folks who have qualified in events throughout the year, and also one from the Last Chance qualifier.
Right.
Fought through, I believe, 7 rounds to earn his spot this weekend in this final event.
Yeah, it was an exciting event for Friday, which ran all day, and then they started last night. Now we're here for the final rounds. Our match for round 2 is 2 players that you've probably heard of. Tom Guan playing Crix versus Brandon Kading, who's playing Protector de Menoth. I like these 2 lists that we're going to be seeing put up. There's some.
I do too.
There's some very standard stuff that you see a lot of in terms of list building, and then there's a couple of things that throw you a little bit, things that I wouldn't have expected, but I think are really smart additions to the list.
One of the things we've talked about before is how a lot of these players at this level are looking not just to play what everyone expects well, but to play things people don't expect, that they don't see coming. To
kind of get that sudden freshness to the list that throws their opponent a little bit. And so with Tom Guan, you've got a very kind of standard Scar Pirate Queen list. We've got the 2 Helldivers, Scarlock Thrall for her battle group, and then you've got a full unit of Blackbanes, which you don't always see with Scar, but is a great addition. Thanks to their Incorporeal, their ability to make more troops. 3 full units of Bane Knights, which is no joke. And then the part of the list that I really like is the Wraith Engine.
Yeah, the interaction there with Blackbane's Ghost Raiders is great. And it's also just a impressive combat model, especially during the Blood Magic turn.
It's a monster under her feet, exactly. And it's got, the Battle Engines have their inherent huge base model benefits. They can't be pushed, they can't be knocked down, they can't be slammed. So that Wraith Engine, when it's not incorporeal, provides a great wall for Scar to hide behind, which is something that we talked about in our Iron Gauntlet games when we saw Adam playing Scar 1 with the Kraken, and he used that Kraken to block line of sight to her as much as possible because, while Scar can be really durable, she also suffers a little bit once she starts casting Dark Guidance, even with the extra focus, because she burns through her focus quickly.
Right.
So you want that. You want to protect her a bit, and having a huge base model that really just provides that bastion is good.
So we've seen a Mechanithral Recursion Scar this weekend. Now we're going to see the Bane Knight / Incorporeal Scar.
Hit you hard kind of Scar. So 2 very different Scar lists, but that share some similar aspects to them. But Brandon Kading's list we were talking about earlier, and it does some things that you don't expect, but that honestly I think are going to be huge in this game.
Yeah, he's playing Hierarch Severius, so Severius 2. With a bonded Judicator. You can see the Warjack bond there right on your screen. Once a turn, you can spend a focus point to ignore a damage roll. So such a huge benefit, especially on a Jack that avoiding the damage roll is great, but sometimes there's special effects on a weapon. Well, it also can't be knocked down. It also can't be slammed or pushed, stationary. It's immune to a lot of the things you're afraid of outside of the damage roll, and then you're also turning off the damage roll.
Right. And the Jack also generates that focus for free effectively with its superstructure.
Right. So even if somehow or another Severius is unable to give it a focus point for some reason, you still are able to use the Warjack bond. It's one of the only ways you can do that.
Right.
We've also got a Reckoner and the Blessing of Vengeance in that battle group. Blessing of Vengeance, a great arc node for Severius, clearly, since it's his personal arc node. We got a full unit of Temple Flame Guard with their unit attachment, a minimum unit of Choir, so going lean on the Choir, but as long as he can keep those guys alive, they'll keep powering up the range of weapons of the Adjudicator and Reckoner, and then eventually when they reach combat, of course, melee. 2 Vassals of Menoth. To really
extra rockets there.
Provide an extra force multiplier. 1 probably for the Judicator we'll see each turn, 1 for the Reckoner, or Enliven on the Reckoner. So that part could go either way. A Vassal Mechanic, the Covenant of Menoth, providing some great immunities. Rupert Carvalho, the Piper of Ord, and Vigoth Roven and his Honor Guard. Yeah, so a lot of answers, as well as a lot of devastating force that your opponent has to answer.
Yeah, I like the list in that it has an answer for infantry spam in the Judicator and the vassals and everything. It has, and even Severius himself, because of his Admonisher ability and his ability to arc that through.
Right.
He's got a lot of answers to that multiple infantry thing. And then you've also got a little bit of anti-hordes defense and a little bit of anti-magic defense. So the list does a lot of things in terms of being a bit more of an all-comers list than sometimes you see.
Yeah, it's interesting that we don't think typically about Protectorate casters having strong ranged attacks on their own. I mean, their army does, but the casters themselves rarely are packing a spare hand cannon or a rifle or whatever. But Hierarch Severius has such good ranged potential, especially against dude spam, and we're going to see that today, I'm sure.
And his feat also fantastic for this matchup in that, he just gets that D3+3 auto damage on undead models.
Right.
And, Bay Knights have decent arm. POW 12s against them are going to tear through more often than not. So
and Blackbane's Ghost Raiders might dislike a POW 12.
They would definitely dislike it as well, and that'll just get right past their Incorporeal. So a lot of exciting potential for this match, and we're looking forward to it. The scenario today also an interesting one we haven't seen on the stream this weekend, which because it is the Invitational uses the Steamroller scenarios, we are going to be playing 2 fronts today on this event. So with 2 fronts, you'll see that there are 2 zones, 12-inch by 6-inch rectangles, as well as 2 supply caches placed on the table. The goal, as always, is to score 5 control points or eliminate your opponent's Warcaster or Warlock. If you dominate a friendly zone, which you'll notice that the blue zone and red zone to denote that in terms of friendly and enemy. So the zone closer to the player's table edge is their friendly zone. You can score 1 CP. If you control an enemy zone, you're going to score 1 CP. Or if you dominate the enemy zone, you're going to score 2 CPs. And then last but not least, if you destroy the enemy objective or remove it from play, you can score 1 CP. You can do that once per game. In addition, those supply caches do have their own special rules, and it can be game-changing in the fact that the supply cache have fuel when the objective is not contested by an enemy model. Friendly models beginning their activations within 4 inches of this model can run or charge without being forced or spending a focus. And when you're talking about something like the Judicator or
Reckoner,
the Reckoner, anything like that, those jacks are going to love that because it's going to allow them to get to their targets with more focus. So this scenario favors a little bit more the heavy battle group that Brandon has brought, but the Helldivers themselves are also going to benefit a little bit from this as well, giving them a little bit more punch in melee. The other important thing to note, though it won't matter for this point, is that supply cache have priority. So enemy Warcasters and Warlocks cannot dominate while this objective is within their control area. So you do typically, especially with our Warcasters having decent control areas here, have to remove that objective before you can start dominating the enemy zone. So removing them becomes pretty critical not only for asset denial, but also to be able to start scoring those CPs faster. And it looks like our players are all ready to get set up and go, so I believe that our judge here will be asking our players to begin deploying here. So we see pre-deployment going from Tom here with the Wraith engine, and the clock has begun. So pre-deployment for the Judicator. It's the first game we've seen with 2 pre-deployment stages as well.
Yep. Also, our players were having some fun, joking around, and getting ready for the matchup. They both pulled out their Iron Gauntlet feat tokens. Both of these players were part of the Iron Gauntlet last year and made it to the end at Lock and Load.
Yep, they
received their special feat tokens and focus points and dice. So a sign of pride with these guys to be able to pull those out here in the War Machine Weekend Invitational as well.
Yep, have those heavy metal items just to hit the table with a thud. I see Brandon taking likely a measured approach here. I expect to see those Bay Knights pretty much just line across the front line of his table. Scar right next to that Wraith engine. We were talking a little bit, again, about how Scar is going to likely use that Wraith engine to block line of sight, especially with the range threats that Brandon's army brings. That Wraith engine is going to be very, very useful and important to stopping her from taking a rocket to the face at an inopportune moment.
The players also had a question that required a judge call I hadn't heard before while we were explaining the scenario, and they were asking if they were allowed to watch the live stream on their phone.
And what was the answer to that?
The judge said that no, they're unable to watch the live stream on their phone. But
I think that would mess with their play anyway because we're on a little bit of a delay compared to what they would see. So they'd be watching themselves in the past, in the future.
It always seems a little bit weird to me when they hit the clock because when we see it and when we hear it are off by just enough.
So another item, you see the Bane Knights kind of getting stacked too deep. So that is 2 units there. It's an interesting deployment. It gives him a second line. He's going to Tom's going to have to kind of deal with the idea that he doesn't have to worry about Ivmenoth as it's Severius too, so those rockets aren't going to have quite the punch that they would under Grand Screwtator Severius, but they're still dangerous enough with the choir that he's probably going to want to try to spread out as much as possible and not cluster his forces together. A little harder to do with Crix due to their low command values being undead. But
I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of spreading on that turn one, where you've got that densely packed deployment, and then as soon as that first turn begins, it's like dropping oil into water, where it's like just spread out everywhere.
Use those run moves to kind of reposition. One thing that I find interesting about this deployment is that I'm not sure where he's actually going to put the Blackbanes. I would have expected them to go a little closer to that Wraith engine to benefit from the arm bonus. From its ability to incorporeal models. But he's tightened up those Bane Knights all over it. And so unless they're going behind or around.
Behind the Helldivers looks like a good spot. They're faster than the Helldivers, and they can walk right through them. So that would be my guess with the current position.
But Unhollowed definitely going to come into play as incorporeal models. Gain +2 arm when within its command range of 10 inches, which is definitely significant here. So,
yeah, off of a huge base, that's quite a bit of room. Oh, and Tom makes me a liar. Going on the other side of the Wraith engine. So they're going to run through some Bane Knights instead of through some Helldivers.
Trying to stay a little bit away from that Judicator, which is centrally located. See them kind of forming 2 lines here with Blackbane in the back. And keep him safe. Scarlock Thrall goes down. That's another interesting thing to note about Tom's list is that he doesn't necessarily have the fodder unit. There are no scrap thralls in this list.
Right.
That you normally see for the cheap Scarlock ritual sacrifice target. So he's going to be, it looks like, based on the positioning, sacrificing Blackbane's Ghost Raiders for this, confident that he can bring them back with Blackbane's special ability.
Brand is now setting up his Temple Flame Guard to the right of his Judicator. They've got a pretty good defense against the opposing list. Once that Dark Guidance goes up, even their defense, effective defense 15 from charges isn't likely to be enough at that point. We don't see Banelord Tartarus, though, so we know they're not going to get cursed. That's something. Got the Reckoner coming out. Another thing that Severius 2 brings to the table that we don't always think about is his spell awareness. That means that those various forests there, we've got 4, or is that a hill? We've got one. Which ones are
one's
hills?
One's of them a hill. I think there are 2 hills and then 2 forests.
But even those forests aren't necessarily going to protect you from all of the Jack's range threats. So just another thing that Tom would want to keep in mind. Sometimes we see people kind of pack up their troops behind line of sight, blocking terrain features, but that is not a good idea right now.
The other spell that I'm expecting to see Severius use to good effect here is Influence. With Blessing to arc through and reach troops almost all the way.
Yeah, when you can trade a focus point for a Bane Knight over and over again, that can be worth doing.
Bane Knights with their Mat 6, Def 12 are perfect targets for that. You're going to be able to likely get a couple in the back as well.
Well, no backstrike bonus because it's not the model's activation, but still, 6s to hit and then fairly easy to kill as well with POW 11 Weapon Master.
goes back to Severus being very good at controlling infantry spam. See our players checking War Room as well, saying that they have the extra cards just in case.
Yeah, already this seems like a very War Room-oriented game.
Yep. So we see Apparition to start off Tom's turn 1 here.
And now he's winning.
And that was his claim. The extra Apparition 2-inch move puts him in the lead. These two players very close in terms of camaraderie, having played against each other in many events. These guys go to a lot of the same events, so there's a good casual game feel right now at the table with them kind of trading jibes back and forth and just laughing it up, despite the fact that this is a very high-pressure event, and it's one of those things that you see very consistently at all of the high-level tables for War Machine and Hordes events. Guys just having fun while at the same time playing for each other's throats.
Right.
So you see those first unit of Bane Knights running, and like you predicted, oil and water, they're spreading out pretty far. With a command of 8, they are better than most Crick's troops in terms of being able to get a good dispersion there. Brandon kind of baiting, I think, that one Bane Knight right there by the objective out to get killed for a vengeance.
Right. That's one of the things with vengeance units is they have deceptively long movement ranges. They don't really just charge their 5 inches plus the 3 plus reach. I mean, 10 inches is bad enough, but when they're adding 3 to it every time you kill one, it makes them very dangerous.
Right. See the other Bane Knight unit spreading out, running up the side of the table towards that clock there. Ghostly allows them to basically not worry about the forest and rough terrain. We see Black Banes going next, using their superior speed to get in front of the Bane Knights. Feeling fairly confident in their positioning, although Blessing of Vengeance is in a position to threaten them, both between Admonisher and potentially Hexblast, depending on how they clump up from Severius. Influence not an issue with them, however, 1 from the Incorporeal and 2, they don't have reach, so as long as you keep them fairly spread out, that's not going to be an issue. And I'm curious to see what he's going to ritually sacrifice this turn. He did say this is the part where I ritually sacrifice, but now the Wraith Engine's going first. Wraith Engine not Incorporeal this turn. Saving that for a future turn. See just an advance from the Wraith Engine. And Brandon does ask if he is Wraith walking, which would turn the Wraith Engine Incorporeal, and Tom says no. Scarlock activates next. Targets a Black Bane like we expected. For ritual sacrifice. Here comes the die roll.
Here we go.
6 focus on the first round. Brandon shouting out surprise as that dice comes up 6. So.
Well, we saw a Scar game yesterday with not a single 6 or even a 5.
No, it was mostly 1s and 2s in that game. So, but if Scar's gonna get 6 additional focus on a turn, you want it to be round 2 usually. There's less she can do with it, typically, on that turn. See the Harrowers burrowing, or the Helldivers, excuse me, burrowing.
Yeah, I remember thinking yesterday that the Helldivers were going to do a lot more burrowing.
Well,
this time I thought they were going to burrow on turn 2, and they outsmarted me again.
Burrow early. They were unpredictable. So Tom again running that last unit of Bane Knights up.
Now, while those guys need to get up there and need to eventually get in the action and possibly even want to trigger their vengeance, this has created some AoE opportunities. Granted, that Judicator's still pretty far away, but they are packed in pretty close at this point.
It's not hard to get a good deviation on that to catch a few of them. And even blast damage, once you factor in the choir from those rockets, has a good potential to take out a few, especially when you're hitting 3 or 4 of them on a blast. So Scar, the last model to activate for Tom. So Brandon telling Tom that when Scar activates, she should drop focus, run 14, and turn her back to the Judicator. Solid play for Brandon. Well, maybe not so much for Tom.
Also not something that actually works. You can drop Fury in hordes, but we don't have a comparable rule in War Machine. She's going to have to keep that focus or use it for spells.
The Scar advances. I'm a little surprised she advanced next to the Wraith engine rather than behind it, although she is sitting on all of her focus, so she's a fairly hard nut to crack at this point between her defense and...
With the 6 focus for next turn, I believe Tom wants to have her far enough forward that she can have a huge impact on that turn. So, Brandon begins activating with Vigoth Roven and his Honor Guard, I think.
I think we saw some allocation first.
Was the right? Looks like 1 to each Jack. Yep. So the Blessing of Vengeance now runs forward. So the judge just clarified that, yes, it was 1 focus to each Jack, but the Judicator now has 2 because of its ability.
Its reliquary.
Yep.
So I think right away we're going to see Brandon trying to take out some of those Blackbanes. See a measurement of melee range.
Trying to gauge the distance to the Ghost Raiders.
Needs to be within 10 for an Admonisher attack.
Yeah, 10 for the
for his.
It's 8 on the.
8 on the Rain of Fire.
Rain of Fire. It's 10 on the Hex Blast, though.
So,
I think he's easily in the 10, but I think he's out of the 8.
And Tom actually admitted as the two were talking, because Brandon was doing a little bit of the math out loud, that Tom thinks he accidentally didn't run the Blackbanes their full distance, which puts that run move out of Rain of Fire range.
Well, I mean, nothing says that he has to run them the full distance.
No, but he was actually being apologetic. I think he actually meant it was an accident based on his voice. So, Judicator simply runs forward.
And Temple Flame Guard are also running.
Did the Iron
Zeal? Guy
Zeal?
gets 1 toe into the scenario zone there.
See that 1 Temple Flame Guard getting slowed down by the, not slowed down by the hill there, just staying toe on the hill.
I keep thinking that's a forest because of the variegation on it. But just a hill.
No Iron Zeal.
Brandon notes that Iron Zeal is unlikely to make too much of a difference against those Bane Knight Weapon Masters.
Really spreading out there in terms of getting the banner behind the Judicator.
Keeping that standard bearer well away from the combat troops.
Quite know what the play is there, but the standard does provide a couple of benefits for him. In terms of re-rolling command checks, which could matter against the Wraith engine.
Well, since he's not contributing to the battle combat-wise, it's not really any loss to keep that standard bearer out of the way. Reckoner runs forward. The Covenant Menoth runs to a more central position. Rupert Carvalho advances and gives the Temple Flame Guard the Dirge of Mists song, so they now have +1 defense. And terror.
Making that set defense ability a lot nicer, especially when you're talking about Mat 6
right.
Bane Knights.
So, yeah, charging Bane Knights are looking for 10s to hit them at this point.
Even with Dark Guidance, that's not a guarantee. It's better, but...
Well, and once again, we see the armies spread out enough that Scar is probably not going to be able to get every single model in her control range. We see a Hex Blast fired, or not. A what? Not a Hex Blast. A Fear of God, excuse me. Fear of God, so that unit can no longer give orders, receive orders, or make special attacks.
So Brandon playing smart there. He used the spell with the longer range to gauge his distance to the Black Manes to see if he could shoot Rain of Fire, and he was in range. So
good to know. Now he's going to be able to use that attack. Or he was just out?
Might have been just... I thought they said he was making the shot, but maybe it was just out.
Vygoth Rovin and his bodyguards there head up the field a bit. Choir advances. Well? Or was that not the choir? That was the vassal. Yep. That was the one vassal, and now the other vassal advances up to the Judicator. Well, between the Judicator and the Reckoner. He uses Enliven on the Reckoner. One of the things we've talked about before is how strong players often just get in good habits. And even when you don't desperately need Enliven, it is fairly unlikely that Reckoner is going to take a damage roll anytime soon. You still want to get that out there. The Choir advances as well. And Brandon has completed his turn.
Brandon not taking the ancillary shot on the Judicator to try to land a rocket and some early casualties into the Bane Knights because he doesn't want to risk that vengeance.
Yeah, is it worth maybe getting a guy or two, but then maybe also letting them get a lot closer to you?
Yep. Being very
apparition
cagey
move.
Being very cagey about the threat distances on Tom's army. So we've got Wraith Engine going forward, asking for confirmation on the Judicator's armor. So potentially we'll see that Wraith Engine maybe go after the Judicator. Under Scar's feet, it certainly has the potential to do some significant damage, but really wants those soul tokens first to get extra attacks. And you have to remember that the Judicator can slough one damage roll.
It does still have a focus. It's also worth noting, like you said, the soul tokens for the Wraith Engine can be very important, but not a whole lot of living models right in front of the Wraith Engine.
No. It does get them within 10 inches, though, so if it advances forwards. We see that the... looks like he did Wraith Walker this turn, though. So Tom's Wraith Engine is now incorporeal. Declare that during the control phase. See the Hell Divers coming out of Burrow. Scar standing on the Hell Diver Burrow marker. So just how the judge come over, help stabilize, make sure that the game state stayed proper.
Make sure there was room at the particular location Tom wanted his Hell Divers to show up.
So we have 12 focus being laid out. She does not allocate any focus.
And it's not really a good time for Tom to use the feat. He wouldn't really get a great deal of offensive benefit out of it. So even though Scar has plenty of focus to Dark Guidance and still have lots of armor, probably not going to see that big push this turn.
See a measurement of Scar's control area. Tom getting things over quick. This ritual sacrificing a Black Bane. Rolls it, gets 4. It's a solid roll. It's not 6, but it's definitely going to make her an offensive threat next turn as well. And if you bank on the feat turn happening on round 3, Scar with 10 focus on a feat turn is solid. So see the Black Bane's activated and walking since they can't charge due to Fear of God. Tom.
Yeah, no runner charge on, well, any of the units in Tom's army is a really strong benefit.
See those Black Banes kind of advancing up. Tom did confirm with Brandon that Blessing of Vengeance doesn't have any magical weapons, but still has that
He can sure
arc
channel them.
He can sure channel a couple. Unable to, so we see the Bane Knights running. Dashing up towards those Temple Flame Guards. Kind of being the, there was no fear of God on them, so they too good to make the word. Right through that water feature, using Ghostly to great effect.
And also taking up a position that I frequently use with Reach models, where you've got a couple of guys who are threatening free strikes if anyone tries to go past, and the other guy's a bit behind them so that they're less likely to get charged.
Well, and especially with Vengeance models, too, now you're put into a position as Brandon trying to figure out, do I let myself get charged and hope that my higher defense between Dirge of Mist plus set defense can weather Scar's Dark Guidance on those guys? Do I charge and try to kill a few, knowing that Vengeance will put several of those Reach models in range to make 2 attacks?
In this particular case, though, the Picket has a very good chance of falling to ranged attacks. The Reckoner can snipe out one of those guys. The Judicator can use one of the weapons on his right side to take out one of the guys. And then those Temple Flame Guard can then reach a decent chunk of Bane Knights.
See that Helldiver move through the Wraith Engine because it is incorporeal, and then both Helldivers burrowing again. Another option, too, is that Judicator does have twin flamethrowers that if it positions itself properly, might get a couple of sprays off to hit 1 or 2 of those lined up Bane Knights. It's not going to be able to get many with its speed 4, but it could get a couple. And every little bit helps when you're trying to clear out those lines.
And I wonder, though, if Tom is baiting that. Moving up the Judicator before Scar's feet could be very dangerous.
See the
after the Vengeance move and then a charge, with Scar's feet up, that Judicator would be toast.
See the other unit of Bane Knights running. Last unit of Bane Knights on Tom's left, now running. See them continuing to stay intermingled with their buddies, so pretty tight clusters here from Tom, despite all of the AoE that he's kind of staring down here.
Well, in a perfect world, one guy from each Bane Knight unit will die. I think that would make Tom very happy.
It could I mean, definitely the positioning kind of obfuscates which unit is which, and when you start to get that tunnel vision on destroying your opponent's models, if you're not paying attention, there's a couple groupings there that are really sweet. Those 2-man Bane Thrall groupings are, like you said, 2 different units.
Right.
But not always instantly identifiable, not because Tom's purposely obfuscating that, but because when you're on the other side of the table, you start to focus in on, I need to eliminate these Bane Knights. Look how many they are. They're going to really wreck me next turn. And you stop thinking about, well, how do I target so that only one unit might get the Vengeance move? So we see
it's worth noting for the folks who are watching that up close, it's a lot easier to tell which of those Bane Knights are which.
Yeah.
One of the units is much darker, which you can make out a little bit on the camera, but you can make out even more so at the table.
See the Wraith Engine running, moving into Brandon's zone. So trying to prepare to control.
Well, and trying to get into a good position to potentially charge the Judicator next turn.
We'll have a little bit of an issue since he used Wraithwalker this turn. He's not going to be able to make that Wraith Engine incorporeal next turn. So with the huge base, it's a little easier for Brandon to try to gum up the charge lanes if he needs to.
Not a whole lot of models over there for gumming up charge lanes, though. If the Temple Flame Guard head all the way over there, it means they're not doing a whole lot on their side.
See Brandon taking a moment to think here and ponder this next turn. Tom's definitely set up a strong board position here.
You can see a busy War Machine weekend in the background.
Many of those tables behind our players are the rest of the War Machine Weekend Invitational players. Let's see Jason Flanzer and Will Pagani, as well as Charles Aerosmith and a couple others.
We've also got more War Machine going on upstairs, and IKRPG, board gaming.
Saw a lot of High Command being played in the lobby, both last night, and I think there's a couple games this morning. So it's been a very Privateer Press War Machine-centric weekend, but with all the other good stuff as well. So Brandon measuring measuring the Judicators' melee range to try to figure out threat distances, but then realizes that he's got a 16-inch control area, so what is he doing here? So he tosses down his key, kind of disgusted with himself, and pulls out that tape measure to measure Severus' 16 inches.
This is definitely a critical turn for Brandon. Depending on what he commits and how thoroughly he commits it, it can either put him in a really good position for future turns, or it could wind up kind of limiting his possibilities.
Well, if he plays wrong here, he's and opens Tom for a run on the Judicator under Scar's feet. That puts him at a severe disadvantage. If he starts to lose models, he doesn't have the numbers to play the attrition war with Tom. So
also potentially opens him up to vengeance kills and then a turn worth of kills on those Temple Flame Guard. And then he's got very little remaining to contest the blue zone.
Yeah, he's got to be very careful in this turn, and you can see through his consideration here that he knows that. He's certainly not seen this type of list before, this type of Scar tactic. You said Brandon and Tom have definitely played against each other in several events, so you kind of see that experience playing in here that leads to these players getting to these final tables. So he's doing his focus
carefully
allocation,
counting out how his focus is going to be used. He does upkeep both spells. The Holy Ward on the Temple Flame Guard there, and the
Fear of God.
Fear of God on the Blackbane Ghost Raiders.
A little surprised he's not cycling that Fear of God to one of the Bane Knight units, given that Blackbane's hit decently well under Scar's feet, but not as well as...
Well, and it's also possible that those Ghost Raiders are going to be thinned out quite a bit this turn. So when we were talking about the Temple Flame Guard earlier, I had missed that he declared Holy Ward on them until I saw it and he upkept it. So those defense values we were talking about are even higher. Assuming Dirge of Mist goes up again, a charging Bane Knight will not need a 10 to hit them. They'll need boxcars.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's difficult.
Dark Guidance 12 is a lot easier than a straight 12.
It's easier, but not likely. Not something you want to bank on.
No. So. Definitely changes how probable those hits are going to be.
See Brandon considering here his allocation, taking time on the clock. So Brandon allocates nothing with Severus. Has admitted to Tom and our judge Tim that he is going for the long shot here.
Yeah, I'm curious what long shot that is. Scar camping 12 focus doesn't sound like a long shot you want to take.
See a measurement of Blessing of Vengeance's melee range, which you can measure at any time. Figuring out his positioning here.
It's very possible we're also going to see Severus' feet this turn. Kind of magically blow up a few undead models.
It's a good way to clean out those picket lines, as you talked about, to clear the way for the Temple Flame Guard.
Well, and the nice thing about the feet, Fires of Communion, is that you don't have to target a specific area of the board or anything. You can pick them from anywhere. So if the Reckoner and Judicator get certain models out of the way, but there are a few still where you need to remove them, that feat's a great way to just blow up those guys as well. Very curious, though, to see what this long shot is going to be.
Severius activates first. See him advance.
So not going to be using Fires of Communion as a cleanup element.
Advances again, measures his control. Looks like he's... And now backing up, using the rest of his movement. A little bit more of his movement. Trying to get in that perfect range position here.
Checking distance to various models, various undead models that he's planning to clear out a bit.
So a quick confirmation from Tom and the judge checking to see if Severius' feat triggers Vengeance, which it does not, because Vengeance specifies an enemy attack. So we see a Hex Blast from Severius. So 8 points of damage on the Wraith Engine from a Hex Blast. So Severius feats, he gets 5 models.
Chooses the Wraith Engine, 2 of the Bane Knights on the unit on that side of the table near the Wraith Engine. And which 2 more?
Looked like a Bane. I think that's a Bane Knight and a Black Bane's actually.
Chooses 2 Bane Knights on the same unit on that side of the table.
So dead Bane Knight. Oh, no, he did choose the Bane Knight. I just missed the point.
So 4 dead Bane Knights.
And he boosts.
And boosting on the Wraith Engine.
Good roll on a 13.
It's going to do another healthy chunk of damage. The Wraith Engine's certainly feeling it.
So burning it down.
Deployment is on the clock.
Brandon trying to figure out he's within 8 inches. So we see Rain of Fire being fired at the Wraith Engine. He believes
really
he's within.
Close.
See a pause.
Using an 8-inch template.
It looks so
just out of range. So that Rain of Fire that we were expecting to see a lot of this game coming up millimeters short repeatedly here.
So just outside. Fortunately, no more shots from Severius on that Wraith Engine. So we see Rupert giving Pathfinder. Severius sits on 1. We see a charge on Roven.
For Vigoth Roven and his Honor Guard. They're not damaged, so no battle-driven going on here.
But they do have Pathfinder to be able to clip through that forest without losing the movement from the activating Rupert.
It's interesting to me that Blessing of Vengeance didn't target the model nearest the Wraith Engine, but a little bit closer. Or, well, that Severius didn't through Blessing of Vengeance. The POW 10 is the damage on the direct hit as well as the damage from Admonisher, so it wouldn't have been lower damage on the Wraith Engine. And those extra shots, the burst of magical energy from Admonisher, is boostable.
Yeah, he had a couple of Blackbane options there that were definitely within range. I guess you just have to bank on the dice because he would have had to roll at least a 2 models to get a bounce to the Wraith Engine. We see a hit from and the Wraith Engine is destroyed from the Honor Guard charge.
That guy has definitely earned his wages for today.
Brandon letting out a whoop of joy there that worked. He committed a lot of resources to removing that model. And we see Blessing of Vengeance now advancing backwards, trying to stay safe. Now it makes sense to me why he upkept Fear of God on the Blackbanes. He advances back instead of forward. We see a Vessel Enliven Blessing, trying to keep
With
his
the Enliven,
pieces safe.
even if somebody does reach Blessing of Vengeance and do a little damage, he will then get to move away from any further reprisal.
Combined with Blessing's superior repulsion on his shield.
Choir Menoth now advancing forward, and he chooses to protect them from spells this turn.
See the
Vassal Mechanic runs over. Gets very close to the Judicator, and now all the Jacks are, if they both walk towards each other, I bet all of those Jacks are now within range to be repaired if they get closer to him and he gets closer to them.
Brandon now realizing that he probably should have Rain of Fired the Blackbanes, but thought he was within, and he was within a hair. So I mean, it was an impossible,
too close to call.
Yeah.
But in the case of those bouncing sort of attacks, if you can boost the secondaries, go for what you know is in range. On some things, though, you can't.
Right. It's possible, though, he wanted the initial hit because of the extra POW from Blessing of Vengeance Affinity.
The Affinity does give a little extra POW.
That only affects the initial hit, so that would have made it a POW 12, a little better than a POW 10.
Yeah.
Still, if there's any hesitation, I mean, the Wraith Engine's arm is not high enough that a boosted POW 10 is not going to do the damage that you need.
But that, in this case, that wouldn't have. The Affinity doesn't really come into play.
Correct, because it spells damage rolls. He gets to channel it like a spell, but it's still not a spell.
Right. Although it means more on Hex Blast, since it's the spell's damage rolls, it also applies to the blast damage.
Which I believe he took, actually, on. Forgot he Hex Blasted the Wraith Engines to start the turn.
So Hex Blast already a solid spell, but when you turn it into a POW 15 direct hit and POW 9 blast, it becomes a lot more impressive yet.
So Brandon trying to just confirming the different colors on the Bane Knights, as DC pointed out. When you see them off camera and in person, those colors are very different and easily recognizable. Brandon's trying to figure out which units are going to Vengeance next turn. So Temple Flame Guard actually going to run, sounds like.
So the Temple Flame Guard going to form their own picket. He confirms that it's a charge order.
Yep. So we should see a couple going after some Bane Knights potentially. Brandon making sure that Blackbanes don't have CMA because he wants that really high defense to save him. Blackbanes, again, much like the Bane Knights, only sitting at a mat 6, except for Blackbane himself is mat 7. So when you're talking about, they can't charge, so no set defense, but when you're talking about def 15
soon to be 16 once.
No, because Rupert already
Rupert
went. Rupert had to burn the Dirge of Mist instead for Pathfinder for Rovan and his bodyguard.
Whether that turned out to be valuable.
Curious if that was Gaius or Cassius.
They look awfully similar
himself
from a distance.
Because all have it's likely either Gaius or Cassius.
Yeah, they do all have magical weapons.
But the Exemplar Bodyguard's having Weapon Master, and we saw Brandon roll that additional die. See,
this particular Temple Flame Guard that was just moved is charging a Bane Knight. Charging a Bane Knight from the other unit. So we're potentially looking at a whole lot of Vengeance over there. One of the things with Vengeance is that there's no opportunity to Dark Guidance before Vengeance.
True.
So at least against the Temple Flame Guard with their various stacked defense buffs, or right now just a flat 15. Still not an easy hit for Mat 6. Rolls the charge. The first one misses. Second one hits. Destroys the...
And that was a CMA from the 2 Temple Flame Guard.
destroys the Bane Knight, but triggers the other Vengeance.
So Brandon taking a look at the board. He's got the Reckoner left. Reckoner advances. Just hopping up on that hill, staying by the supply cache. See a shot at the Bane Knight in the back.
Takes a long shot.
Is within range, though. Does hit.
Clears out another Bane Knight from, well,
Same
one
unit.
of the units that's already Vengeancing.
Yep. See
Or is it all one unit still?
I think Brandon has been targeting one unit.
Yep,
It's the
darker.
The darker Bane Knights. Or Bane Knights. See the book coming around? The book playing a little interference for that Reckoner there.
Well,
trusting to its ancient shroud ability to.
So good at that. I mean, people look at the Covenant of Menoth mostly for its support abilities, which is natural since that's what it's mostly there for. But Ancient Shroud makes it such a good blocker, too. I've occasionally even just ran the book straight in front of something because it's hard to get 5 attacks on it to clear it out of the way. The last Vassal of Menoth enlivens the Reckoner, so a Blessing of Vengeance and the Reckoner are both enlivened, and a wall of Temple Flame Guard stands before the Judicator.
Wall of high defense Temple Flame Guard at that. So Tom now put into the difficult position here with the loss of that Wraith Engine to Brandon's clever play there in terms of affecting that incorporeal Wraith Engine. Severi is one of the few models that can really deal with it as effectively as he did between the feat, Hex Blast with Blessing of Vengeance, bringing it up to a 15, and then having those magical weapon models in Juvia and Rovin and his bodyguard. See the Vengeance moves happening right now with the unit of Bane Knights that was thinned out last turn by Brandon.
I think one possibility, if I was playing against Tom's list, if I kill one guy from each Bane Knight unit, I can make him run out his clock.
So we see an attack miss against the Temple Flame Guard on Snake Eyes. Second one miss as well. Only getting a 12, needing a 15. Helldiver's in Tom's hand now. Figure out where to unburrow.
A lot of stuff going on before the turn even really gets underway, before even allocating focus.
Placed right in the middle of those Flame Guard. Quick measure of the 3 since he gets to place it within 3 of that burrow marker. And the second one. Quick consideration as to where to place it if he wants to.
So Feated Helldivers would be one off the damage roll against the Judicator with Sacrificial Strike and Blackbane's Ghost Raiders.
To
looks
clear a path.
possible to clear a path to the Judicator for both Helldivers.
Yeah, Holy Ward prevents Scar from using Blood Rain there to target them.
Yeah, no Blood Rain, but
targeting the Judicator won't get the AoE on. She could target her own Helldivers.
Sacrificial Strike, though, is not a spell.
Sac Strike, definitely a useful bit here. And again, based on...
And still in a position where that one Ghost Raider can walk through the Helldivers to the Temple Flame Guard. It would definitely mean we would see a Dark Guidance this turn, because this is not going to work very well without that extra accuracy.
So 3 on a first Helldiver. Expecting we'll see 3 on the other Helldiver if his plan is to go after that Judicator under Scar's feet. Scar in a vulnerable position, though, with the loss of that Wraith Engine. So Tom asking for confirmation on the range of the Covenant of Menoth abilities, just 10 inches.
So we're looking at a total of 60 damage boxes at arm 19 on that Judicator.
With one that's just going to, one damage roll that's going to be just sloughed right off, too.
Right.
Because that Judicator still has a focus point on it. So we see Scar going first and casting Dark Guidance. Sitting on 3 focus now. She feats. She cuts for 5 focus, or for 5 damage, excuse me. Now we see Scar advancing forward. Here comes that sack strike you likely expected.
Well, nope. She's going to mix it up in melee rather than sack strike.
Trying to take out
kill Cassian or Gaius. I can't tell them apart.
So
with
trying
the
to
feet,
trying to get that heal off of Bloodworm.
Yeah, with the feet, it makes a lot of sense for Tom to attack with her her life drinker knife rather
Heals
than
3.
attacking with the big sword.
That's the best you can hope for there. Now she's effectively feated for only 2 damage.
Yeah, and I think that's the right call. I mean, knocking him down with the horns would enable the others to hit better, but she's got 3 base attacks. Why not use the one likely to heal her first?
Well, and he was fairly guaranteed to kill with regardless of which weapon under that feat. Gaius has decent armor, but not amazing armor. It's not inviolable by any means. Scar is really far forward now, though. So we see the Blackbane's Raiders just advancing because Fear of God is preventing them from being able to charge.
So did not move one through the Helldiver like I thought he might. Trying to clear out both ranks of just one of the rows there, Temple Flame Guard with Blackbane's Ghost Raiders.
Brandon now lamenting the fact that he didn't Rain of Fire the Blackbanes earlier. So needs a 9 on this attack from the Blackbanes to eliminate the Temple Flame Guard. Does hit with Dark Guidance. And hits again. And does kill the Temple Flame Guard. That will put a Blackbane back into the action.
He said he missed on that first attack. I don't know how that would be the case, though.
Reanimating Blackbane here. So we see another
very
attack.
Important attack.
Hits and does kill.
So yeah, I don't know why he didn't roll his first damage roll after his first attack earlier, but that guy was dead either way, and now this guy is also dead.
And you see a Blackbane get brought back from Reanimation, which is the granted ability from Blackbane himself. So we see the Helldiver advancing forward, getting into that Judicator.
It's going to take one Temple Flame Guard free strike. Wow, that's harder to say than it was in my head.
So he does take a free strike, does hit. Feet provides a decent amount of protection, but that is still a decent roll. So the Helldiver up to arm 20 right now.
Like a juggernaut.
Like a juggernaut. Hits the Judicator with his face, as we learned yesterday.
Yeah.
Punches him with his face, excuse me. That was how Adam always described his Helldiver attacks. Punching you. He always said punching. We pointed out that it's a bite attack, so we liked punching with the face. A really good damage roll there on the second attack.
It's rolling a little bit above average, but
you want that to hit roll right there for your damage roll.
The highest die keeps seeming to be the column.
It's true. And third attack, another really high roll for the hit, which is inconsequential, but a good 9 there.
So that brings 8 damage through. Power 18 against arm 19.
Leaves most of that Judicator's left side trashed.
The Vassal mechanic is going to have a lot of work to do.
So we see the lighter unit of Bane Knights being activated now. He's got to clear a path to get. We see a charge on the Judicator, trying to use Ghostly to sneak past those free strikes and get charge lanes in. Just a few Bane Knights under Scar's feet are going to be able to do some serious work here. It's funny to see the trade-offs here as both players trying to protect their key pieces and then having their opponents come up with clever ways in which to get around their defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the Wraith Engine kill by Brandon, not expected necessarily, but some gamble and risk put in paid off there and forced Tom to come up with a different way to do this turn. And now you see Tom trying to force Brandon into a position where he's going to be on the back foot again.
And the judge rules that it does clip the base, so that Bane Knight winds up charging forward until he hits just the bare edge of that. There it is, that Temple Flame Guard space.
Not what you want to see there.
Not as Tom.
No, not as Tom. As Brandon, certainly. So we see
he's trying again.
Intent to get in there. That one looks good to me, based on the top-down angle we have here. Because that Temple Flame Guard's shoulder pad kind of. And yeah, Charles, there's not even a check.
Charles agrees. That one looks good.
Brandon agrees.
Brandon agrees. Who's Charles?
I don't know. Who is Charles?
Where did that even come from?
It's been a long weekend. Been a great weekend, though. Very excited to be here. Super happy that we get to stick with the next 4 rounds of the Invitational, and we got to do the entire Iron Gauntlet. Everything of which you can still see on Twitch TV, on the archives, and soon to be on the Private to Press YouTube channels. We have some amazing games that we've seen, and unfortunately several that we didn't cover, but the weekend's been full of just great play all around. Even watched a game with
so many events.
Yeah. I watched one of my favorite events actually was the Old Bloods tournament that they had.
Yeah, I was going to mention that one too.
Yep.
I asked the guys how their Old and Busted tournament was going. They're all good sports, though. They didn't mind.
They were great. They were.
I also noted that it's only 3 years until I could be an Old Blood. It's terrifying. Terrifying.
So we see the lighter Bane Knights making some attacks on Temple Flame Guard here. Outside of Dark Guidance range, though. See, that one hit even with set defense on the Holy Warded Temple Flame Guard, though.
But the ones outside of Scar's control area, really not hitting.
No. And not expected to. Not on a charge with that. See the other Helldiver advancing forward, making attacks against the Temple Flame Guard. Surprised. Wouldn't really have made too much of a difference on that failed charge. See the other Bane Knights activating now. And they're just advancing, trying not to suffer that set defense penalty, as several of those, well, it looks like the couple of the models that will be attacking will be in Scar's Dark Guidance range, but several will not. So that one lonely Bane Knight way in the back, moving forward.
Well, and as we pointed out in yesterday's game, this is only one half of Scar's feat.
Yep. You do have to weather the next turn.
Tom's getting a lot of benefit from the offensive half of Scar's feat, but the defensive half of the feat's likely to come into play as well. Those Temple Flame Guard, especially since now they're not going to be charging, just stabbing, they're going to have a tough time breaking arm 21.
And Tom's done a great job of thinning out those Flame Guards so that even CMA options are going to be limited. There's only 5 models left from that unit, one of which is really isolated in the enemy zone.
And so many Crix models still on the board.
Yep. Adjudicator, however, is still fairly, largely functional. It's got a mechanic right at its back. So anything that might be damaged, but I don't think any of the systems are out on it currently. It can be brought right back. Its Cortex, which is the important part, is certainly fully functional. It's the system most damaging to have crippled before your turn begins. See a sack pawn for one of the Bane Knights this time. Gets 2 focus for next turn from the Scarlock, casting Ritual Sacrifice. And that will end Tom's turn.
Brandon definitely has some tough choices to make right now because blast damage is not going to be very helpful with all that armor.
Not against Arm 21 Bane Knights and even
the Ghost Raiders.
Even the Ghost Raiders that are not incorporeal anymore for making attacks, which is only a few of them. Is looking at Arm 17. So Brandon doing some quick math here on his damage capacities here. Talking about his blast damage potential.
He could certainly smash the Helldiver and a couple of Ghost Raiders, but that is not how you want to spend Adjudicator's entire activation and bunch of focus. We forgot to mention it at the time, but we did see the Reliquary focus used up to cancel one of the hits, one of the damage rolls earlier. Helped mitigate the damage a little bit. Without the feat, Adjudicator's in much better shape because you're talking about POW 13s from the Helldivers.
Right.
The Bane Knights not really going to, or Bane Knights, the Ghost Raiders not really going to be able to do a whole lot to Adjudicator either.
No. The Bane Knights are the best bet, but that comes down to number of attacks now rather than just Weapon Master POW 16 attacks.
Both players still have plenty of time, roughly half an hour each. Brandon's looking for an angle on Scar, it seems like.
Admitting to Tom that he really wants to take it. So doing some math. Not quite sure what he's cooking up here, but he's definitely excited about it.
With so many Crix models on the table, he really wants to go for the caster kill, I think.
Scar's position is probably not going to be better for it. He's got a lot of models to get through. That said, though,
I believe she's sitting at Arm 22 at the moment with her impressive defense 16, and she's only got a couple damage on her thanks to the Bloodworm heal.
I'm wondering if he's trying to look for a trample angle for the